we are going to talk about Kon Knueppel, who is headed to Duke. He is listed at 6'7", 217 on Duke's website. And I don't know about that. He's listed at 6'5" on the Jordan Brand roster. So I think there's some shenanigans going on with, a team site listing there. But if he's 6'7", my goodness. I mean, let's go. I love this dude.
Yep.
I think he is so good. He actually did stand out in the Jordan game. Like, he didn't have a million touches, but anytime he had the ball, it was like, oh, a good decision is being made. I'm going to be aggressive. I'm going to score. He's just very skilled. And I think he is going to be, he's actually going to get minutes on this Duke team because I think he's better than some of the returners. And he's got a strap. And I think, anytime you're a prospect with a strap, you become interesting to me, especially when, you got some size to you. And I think the fact that, again, he's a very vanilla looking, like, Midwest white dude, people are going to sleep on his actual skills. But this dude can freaking play, man.
Yeah. Corey, my first line in my notes for him is, and this was originally talking about his jumper, but I just applied it to his whole game. There's no wasted motion to his game.
Yeah.
He is an extremely intelligent and efficient basketball player that knows, I think he's very aware of his weaknesses and where he lacks. And he compensates for all that by just being really efficient, really smart, and really tactful with how he plays and moves and functions on a basketball court. This is a guy that knows, like, he looks himself in the mirror and he goes, yeah, I'm not Jalil Bethia in terms of athleticism, but I've got my brain, I've got my shooting ability, and I've got more handle than people will give me credit for. And he's a really, really interesting, kind of one of these, like, farm strong, really talented basketball players. And so my biggest thing with him is there's no waste in his game, and he plays 0.5 basketball all the time. Whether it's with his decision making or where he puts himself on the floor or the way that he reads defenses, this is an extremely intelligent basketball player that knows exactly what he wants to do at all times to put himself or his team in a winning position, is where I'm at with Kon. So yes, Corey. And we texted, we were like, let's talk about him, but we didn't talk about him at all to each other. And I feel exactly the same. I think this guy fucking rocks at basketball.
He does. He's just, and he's the kind of guy that, again, I think people are going to sleep on him. And I get, like, Duke's roster is freaking loaded. It's deep. Like, dude, I think Darren Harris is, like, one of the best incoming freshmen in the country. I don't even know if he's going to play. But I think Kon is going to play. Farm strong is a great way to describe him. Trailer strong. So as far as and I don't know if you were able to find, on Synergy, all I could find was his EYBL stuff.
Same.
But he shot 46.4% on catch and shoot shots, 41.5% on dribble jumpers. He's got high release, solid, balanced base. He can shoot it, like, when he is just straight up, like, balanced, ready, catch and shoot, or he can shoot it, like, off balance and, like, finish, like, on one leg faders, and he can shoot it off, around either shoulder. He's a legit shooter. He's not going to shoot 50% like Reed or anything like that, but, like, this is a guy who you look at his shot and you're like, this dude has been a shooter all his life. This is not something he's had to develop. Like, he's been, since he was, playing 6U AAU. I don't even know if that exists, but sometimes I see those best second grader in the country videos. But his shot versatility too, man. Like, he can come off a screen with the ball in his hands and like pull up off of a ball screen as the initiator, but he can also pick and pop as a screener. He can shoot off movement. Like, he's just really fun. I think offensively, he's one of the most complete offensive players like in this incoming freshman class. He does have weaknesses that we'll touch on, but like just as far as like his shooting, his shot making, his playmaking, his handle, you touched on like how people are going to sleep on his handle. Like, this dude's handle is super tight. Like, it's ridiculously tight. It's more creative than you'll think it is. And he has like a really quick cross that he uses. Like, he'll set you up with a couple of, between the legs or behind the back, and then hit you with a really low, quick cross. And he has like good first step burst. He doesn't have another gear after the first step.
Correct.
But he has that because he gets so low, he's able to kind of like explode off the starting blocks. But he's strong. So he's Midwest strong. So he's able to kind of deal with guys on his shoulder and not get flustered when he has somebody on his hip or behind him or whatever. And that's where he'll use those decelerations, and, he can get to a little floater, or he loves like pulling up and doing the little like post game, fadeaways or whatever. He's just like the definition of crafty is what he is.
Corey, he's clearly watched a little bit of Luka Doncic. Clearly. Yeah. It's because of everything we just talked about. He's a big kid too. He's not Jalil, but we're not worried about his weight. Or we might be worried about his weight the other way. You know
he looks good. You see those Duke videos. He looks cut up. Maybe he's gonna get that extra gear.
Hey, maybe you're right. But if you watch some of the high school stuff, there's some doughy footage of him, and it's like, okay. But you're right. In the Duke footage, he looks great, and that's a really interesting and exciting thing with him. For me, and I know we're not doing the deep dive right now, but I just, in my notes, I had to write new age Glenn Rice, Mike Miller. Like, I need to throw these names out there early, because watching him, I'm like, okay, I literally went back and was watching Glenn Rice play for Michigan, was watching Mike Miller early days. And yeah, like, obviously a different time. They were running Mike Miller off a pin down for him to take 18-foot jumpers, right? Different game, different world we live in now. However, Kon is a really interesting player because he's going to have all that shooting gravity, and people are going to see it from day one. It's going to be real with him. But as you mentioned, Corey, and you've highlighted, he can do things with the ball in his hands. And part of that is the passing. And I really wanted to highlight that. And I said this to you earlier, that he's got a little bit of that 0.5. So no, not a little bit. He has real 0.5 basketball ability with the way that he's thinking the game so quickly. He moves the ball really, really well. Like, really well. He makes fast decisions. He's a really efficient mover. Like, it's something that I wrote in my notes. He knows how to move and make himself available to his teammates always. And I love that about his game. And so the main conclusion with him is, I think he has a very simple and nuanced game, but I don't mean simple in terms of like the things that he's able to do. He could do a lot of different things, but he tries to keep things simple is my ultimate point. Like, I don't think he's ever trying to be very flashy or have all the attention, but that kind of lulls you to sleep and gets you to not really recognize how much he's actually doing on the floor. And to your point, Corey, with his handle and his ability, like, the strength is really a big part of him. Like, he'll take that first step and get by you or get you on your hip, and he'll stay in front of you because of how strong he is, and he knows how to use his bigger frame. So I'm right there with you, man. I think he's awesome.
Yeah, there's no extra. He's not doing things to like show that he can do them. Like, he's efficient with his movements. And that's the kind of player that you want. Like, he's not going to be a number one option, at Duke. He's not going to be one, I don't think, in the NBA either. So you want guys who are not going to do all of that extra, be efficient when they do have the ball and what they're trying to do with it, because they know what they're going to do with it, and be able to read the game at a high level so that they can get the ball where it needs to go, especially when they're playing with higher level players. And his playmaking, super impressive, right? Like, really slick pick and roll playmaker. He can make pocket passes. He's got height, so he could see over the top. And, he can handle doubles. When teams try to blitz him or whatever, he can throw the lob up to, somebody who can go up and get it, which he'll have a bunch of at Duke this year.
Mm.
He's when he's doing like playing out of ISOs, and I think lull guys to sleep is really a good way to put it, because he likes to play out of like hezzies and stuff. But he's more likely to maybe like drive and kick than make any kind of like high level cross court pass. It's just like, I'm going to get in the paint, guys are going to collapse. But I think he's just high level feel. He makes quick decisions, and the decisions are good.
Yep.
I trust him. I know if he's making a play, it's not because he's trying to bail himself out at the last minute. It's because he's anticipating that it's going to happen, and he's going to put the ball where it needs to go. So I love him as a passer. I love him as a creator. I love him as a shooter. You see it, the footwork and the skill level, like it's all there. I do think, and maybe him getting in better shape will help. The finishing needs some work. He was 50% overall in the EYBL this year, 52.8% in the half court, 0 dunks, according to Synergy. Concerning for somebody who is, 6'5" or listed at 6'7", from the wing. I think he might have small hands. He airballed the dunk that he tried on a breakaway in one of the EYBL games. Like, it was one of the things where he just lost control of it and the ball went over the rim on the opposite side. And so he obviously doesn't have a ton of bounce. He's very ground bound. And in that, he has to settle for like a lot of underhand scoops, so he did get blocked a good amount as well. So I think he's going to have to like mix up his angles and, try to like execute some like spin off the glass. And like, maybe instead of going underhand, he's going to have to like float it over. Or he's going to, just try to be super aggressive and try to utilize his strength. Now, a lot of times, he'll like get down low and he'll kind of like turn his back and try to like, turn it into like a post up or something. But the finishing, I think, needs some work. And the other thing is super right hand dominant. Like, all of his finishes are to the right. I think there were 5 out of 54 attempts where he used his left hand. Now, it's not that he's not finishing on the left side, but he tends to come back to his right hand a lot when he is finishing on that side. And it's not like, he's up in the air laying it up. A lot of it is like he gets to like one of those post moves that he tries to do and finishes in almost like a shoot, like he's shooting it out of a post up rather than like laying it up. But that's like my main concern with him, is like his finishing. I think his shooting and all the other stuff that he does is good enough that it's not like a big concern, like with him as a prospect. I think it's something he'll figure out and like be good enough at. Like, not concerned at all from where I'm going to have him in the preseason, ranking wise. So, but it is something that he needs to work on and he needs to figure out, because, you got to be able to finish near the hoop. Like, you just have to.
Corey, but I think the important point is the one that you started with, where you're like, I think the weight loss is going to help him. Or maybe it's not even weight loss. Maybe it's the chiseling of his weight, right? Maybe he's the same weight, but now, he's got a little less fat, more muscle. So I think that's going to be really interesting for us to watch and to see how that develops. You're completely right about in terms of what we saw, but the fact that he has good touch makes me optimistic about him getting more into his floater stuff. We shall see, right? And another name that came to mind when I was watching him was like, what if he's just like Bojan Bogdanovic? Right. Yeah. When, at his prime, and what type of player that looks like. So I think there are a lot of different outcomes with him, but clearly the athleticism is, I mean, I started out right by saying he's not Jalil Bethea in that department. So not a big time vertical athlete, but still, even though, he lacks that vertical athleticism, I think he moves well side to side. I think defensively, I'm sure we're not going to have a long conversation about that, but I think, he was able to use his strength to his advantage a lot, and we'll see. Like, I think he's somewhere in the middle, Corey. I don't think he's 6'7", but I do think he might be taller than 6'5". So maybe he's like 6'6", 6'6" and a half. And who knows, maybe he grows into 6'7", and then he's even more interesting, right? So The thing with him that I like though is you're right. Like obviously he's got to continue to work on the finishing, but if he's in better shape and he continues to get taller and he adds to his repertoire down there, then we have reason to be more optimistic, I think, than where we are right now.
Yeah, for sure. In the chat, shout out to everybody watching live. Back with us after a little break. Draft Panda says, how do you weigh the depth of Duke versus the skill of the recruits? I feel like Kon might get pushed out of the rotation like 2 or 3 years, plus might be a great NIL and college player. I mean, it's possible for sure. It's hard. Like I said, I love Darren Harris from Duke. I'm going to have a film session with him on the No Ceilings YouTube channel coming out soon, breaking down his film. He might get pushed out too. Like, somebody's got to get pushed out, so it's certainly possible, but I just think he's so good and he's so easy to fit in alongside the guys that they already have. And he's a knockdown shooter. So it's like he has too many things going for him right now, but it wouldn't shock me if Isaiah Evans got pushed out of the rotation, right? Like he, to me, is probably the most likely guy to see that happen. But it's definitely possible and it's something you have to weigh, but still, until I see him get pushed out of the rotation, I think he's so damn good that he's not going to. And I'm going to base my evaluation on that. And then, I'll adjust accordingly. Talking about his defense, you mentioned like I think Kon is very athletic. He just doesn't have bounce.
Mm-hmm.
So like he's a smooth mover.
Yep. Coordinated.
Obviously, he's got a good frame to handle physicality, right. And I think that'll get better. Again, like I think we're already seeing it with the videos that they're putting out that he looks leaner and stronger. He can flip his hips, he plays with his chest, he can absorb contact. I thought he got stuck on screens a fair amount, and he struggles to get like skinny and get over them. But I think he makes smart rotations off the ball. He knows when to be the low man. He knows when to tag the roll. He'll X out. I don't think he's going to be like an elite event creator where he's like constantly in the passing lanes or like coming over and blocking a ton of shots, again, because he doesn't have crazy bounce. But I do think he has quick hands and good anticipation. So like he will get his fair share of steals or blocks, even if he's not going to be like a stock monster, just because I think he reads the game so well. So I think he's going to hold up fine defensively because he's strong enough to handle physicality. And then he's also like smooth enough as a mover with, the feel on that end to balance it all out.
Yeah. And Corey, to your earlier point about, the whole Duke rotation thing. I mean, last year heading into the season, we thought Justin Edwards was going to be incredible for Kentucky. We thought he was going to go off, be like a number one option, maybe even for them. And we had real doubts about Rob Dillingham. We barely talked about Reed Shepherd, right? And things changed over the course of the season. Justin Edwards didn't have the season that we thought he was going to have. And same goes for Rob Dillingham. And then Reed Shepherd had an incredible season, right? DJ Wagner too. Although, Corey, I think you and I, we had some idea that DJ Wagner might have that type of season after what we...
True.
Anyway. And that's that's not a pat on our back. That's just what we felt at the time. Also, so with Duke, like they have Proctor coming back, they've got Foster coming back, and they're adding Isaiah Evans and Malik and Cooper Flag. There are a lot of names. Correct. There are a lot of names, but you never know till they roll out the balls and they start playing, right? And I think even Corey, what you mentioned, the fact that they're featuring Kon in these social media posts, I think that means something. Right. If he wasn't somebody that they were seriously looking at, maybe he wouldn't be on so many of those posts. Right. So we shall see. And, obviously things will play out the way that they will. And, Isaiah Evans, too. Corey, I don't remember how you felt about him at Hoop Summit, but I thought he was just fine. And so we shall see.
Yeah. I liked his how hard he was playing.
Yeah.
For sure. But it was a lot of one-on-one stuff. He was very, very, very skinny.
Very skinny.
So I think he's got a lot of work to do for sure. But yeah, he plays a lot of ISO ball, looking to shoot, those guys, again, it's hard. It's hard. And he's like, if Isaiah Evans was as tall as Brandon Ingram, because he's going to get comped to a guy like Brandon Ingram because he's skinny and he has like that same kind of style game. If he was as tall as Brandon Ingram, I'd feel more confident he was going to be on the floor getting minutes, but like he's like 6'5".
Yeah.
You know, he was really good at the Jordan game when I saw him. Like he went on a heater, and like really looked good and was hitting like super tough shots. So like there's always going to be, you know, an opportunity that he's just such a good shot creator, right? That it just works. But I think he's kind of the guy who gets pushed out just because there's so many other guys who do need the ball in their hands or going to dictate those possessions. But yeah, I think Kon is not going to be one of those guys. I'm going to have him in my top 10 coming into the year. I